Hey, what's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the Salad Bowl Podcast. I'm your host, Kevin Thompson, and today I get to jump into an episode with somebody extremely intriguing and somebody I've known for over 20 years. Before we jump into that episode, like always, I'm going to ask you for three different things. The first thing I'm going to ask you for is for you to subscribe, whether it be on our YouTube channel or whether you follow us on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. The second thing I'm going to ask you for is for you to follow us on social media as well. You can find us at The Salad Bowl Pod on Instagram or The Salad Bowl Podcast on TikTok. Last but not least, I'm going to ask that you normalize authenticity, like it says here on this shirt. And if you don't know anything about that, just tune in for another episode of The Salad Bowl Podcast.
Now, give me my theme music.
You are now tuned in to the Salad Bowl. You are now tuned in to the... Listen up, don't care if you about to pass out or you just getting up. You really did your thing with this one, Kevin, gotta give it up. Messages you bring and be motivation to live it up. We out here really normalizing authenticity. Can't be talking all the time cause that mean you ain't listening. I think you look better when you smile, I see you glistening. Communication helping me to see what you envisioning. Yeah, back to the mission then. Whether you black, white, brown, yellow or green, more can be accomplished as a team. Together the problem is never as hard as it may seem. Lot of captivating convos like Martin telling his dream. We choosing curiosity over certainty. You should certainly subscribe to this one here with some urgency. This a win. Even Cali know. You are now tuned in to the Salad Bowl. The Salad Bowl Podcast.
It's the Salad Bowl Podcast.
You are now tuned in to the Salad Bowl.
It's the Salad Bowl Podcast.
Yeah, you are now tuned in to the...
It's the Salad Bowl Podcast.
You are now tuned in to the Salad Bowl.
You are now tuned into the Salad Bowl Podcast with Kevin Thompson.
All right, welcome back to the Salad Bowl Podcast. I'm your host, Kevin Thompson, and today I have a very special guest with me, somebody that I think of as very intellectual, very intriguing, and something that I didn't have growing up in this world was a little brother. I don't want to say little brother, but more of a younger brother. I want to welcome to the show officially and formally Jamal Gaddis. Thanks for coming in today,
What's
man.
up, Kevin? Yeah, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man. Anytime. I was thinking about when I talk about the Salad Bowl, it all comes down to diversifying the people that I talk to, seeing the different type of people that are around this world. And I know that for a fact, I've talked to a lot of people like me. So whether it's military members, people that I've served with, but I wanted to diversify that and actually widen the perspective of who I speak to. And I know that you're in town from Brazil, and I was like, oh man, I gotta have Jamal on the show, man. So thanks for sitting with me, bro. So to start this thing off, man, we always start off with a segment called The Harvest. Now, The Harvest kind of just talks about who you are and your roots. We're all here, we're all formulas of something that landed us in this chair and me in my chair right now. And I want to kind of explore that. So of course, for the people who know you, they know what to expect. But if you had to introduce yourself to people who didn't know you, what would you say about yourself?
Somebody who didn't know me. I come from somewhere, this city that we're sitting in right now, a city that goes hard for itself, that's always representing. And my background isn't all in here in New Orleans, but I would have to start off with saying that this is the city I was born in and began to be raised in. It's an extremely important part of me and definitely part of my foundation. So I would say I'm from New Orleans. I would also, we were talking about this just a little bit earlier. I'm a younger brother. You said little. You hesitate to say little brother, but I got that. I wear that tag proudly, man, because I think it exemplifies a big part of what I understand myself to be, which is someone who has truly been blessed to have people looking out for me my whole life, man. So wherever I'm at, I don't want to ever give the impression that I got to wherever I'm at on my own. I'm the youngest of 5 kids, and so like I said, I wear that younger brother tag proudly because a lot of the lessons I've learned and I'm still learning in my life were introduced by my older sisters, by my 2 parents who are always there looking out for me. So I'm someone who's received a lot of love, and yeah, so I wear that younger brother
Now, I think that's
Tag
something
me,
that
yeah.
we both do have in common. I was the youngest in my family. You're the youngest in yours. Can you explain to us, for the viewers out there, what did your family look like coming up? You said that you were the only boy. On top of being the youngest,
Yep.
what the household looked like back in the day?
It was a lot of music, a lot of commotion, man. You know, it was a full house. You know, we come from humble backgrounds, so we didn't have a ton of space. But I think, like, as far as I was concerned, that was cool with me. You know, I always wanted to be around my sisters. I don't know if they always wanted me around, but I was always around, you know? So we were always doing something together, like whether it's playing leapfrog or doing like musical performances for our aunties. It was a lot of family. It was a lot of family, you know? A lot of just making up games. I guess, you know, I don't know if the kids are playing games like we played as much back in the day, you know, a lot of hand games. Like I said, leapfrog and stuff like that. We were just having a good time kind of amongst ourselves, our little crew, you know?
Yeah, that's one thing I will say that of course, I've been around y'all's family for a very long time, but the imagination of the Gaddis children is continuous. I feel like even that extends to the children that are coming up now in this family, how we're always playing games, we're trying new things. Of course, we do have more screen time now. That's how the world works right now. But I would like to think that the imagination still controls the Gaddis realm as far
I think
as being
so.
in it.
And that's something that I really like. Kind of at this point in my life, like I said, I really feel like a youngest sibling just because of how much I've been poured into. And something now, you know, with all my nieces and nephews and stuff, and just being at the age I'm at right now, is something. It's trying to like continue that, you know, trying to put that imagination back out, because a lot of what we were getting was from my parents, my aunties, my uncles, my older cousins, you know, where all of us are the youngest cousins basically out of our generation. And so just thinking like trying to remember those games, trying to remember this type of stuff we would do when we were just sitting around bored, you know, and give that to you know, to my nieces and my nephews, kind of try to be a source of that imagination. It was kind of hard sometimes, but you know, I definitely tried to.
Hats off to our parents to be able to channel that energy. Now that I'm finding out, especially with our kids, like as much energy as they have, channeling that into using your imagination and realizing that boredom is not a bad thing. Boredom is like actually the place where a lot of the children figure out, you know, what their passions are and what they like doing and how they can benefit this world. So I shout out to the Gaddis household in perfecting that craft. With that being said, I remember, of course, you talked about New Orleans, man. And I actually met your family by way of New Orleans, because once Hurricane Katrina came through, y'all moved to Atlanta. And that's where I met you. Well, mainly your sister I met. But I remember you back then. You were in middle school.
Yeah, I remember you
so
too.
you were fairly young when that whole thing transpired. Moved to Georgia, ended up spending the rest of your time in high school in Georgia. How was that experience going from New Orleans to Georgia at a younger age? Do you feel like it was more impactful, or was it easy for you to kind of adjust?
I would say, and sometimes, you know, like since Katrina, we just had 20 years just a couple weeks ago. It's been a long time, and obviously how probably anyone from New Orleans or anyone who had people close to them in New Orleans and the other affected areas like will know, you know, your whole life from that time kind of gets marked by that. So it's like after Katrina this or after Katrina that. And since that time, honestly, I've gone a little bit back and forth about like, oh, was it a little easier for me? Was it a little bit harder for me? What I really feel like is that it was a little bit easier for me than like looking at my sisters. You know, my sisters were a little bit older. Mariah, my oldest sister, was in she was in her senior year, right?
Yes.
So she had started her senior year already thinking about graduating and all of this stuff when Katrina hit. So she's, you know, going to Columbia, and I'm sure she's grateful to have met you, you know, and everything that's brought. But it's like, you know, that was a bigger transition for her, I think, than it was for me in middle school. Like I was already kind of starting to transition a little bit, you know, getting a little bit older, puberty, that type of stuff, like basketball. And I think amidst those changes of like just learning a little bit more of like who I wanted to be, like growing out of that young kid phase, I think not like it didn't make a difference that happening in Atlanta, but I think it was a lot going on in my just growing up to where that change in location, it really, I mean, it affected me. I cried my eyes out. You know, I felt a lot of the same things that my sisters and everyone felt, but I can't say I was like really burdened in the same way. You know, I didn't have any responsibilities. I didn't have a job or anything like that.
Yes.
So, you know, I just it was kind of my job to show up and keep it moving, you know, and I got on the basketball team. I started liking girls and stuff like that. So it's like, you know, that kind of thing, I think allowed me to maybe get adapted a little bit more to the Atlanta suburbs, environment a little bit more than my sisters.
Yeah, I mean, was that a big difference from what you knew? I mean, moving to Atlanta, I mean, of course, I grew up in the Atlanta culture, but like Atlanta is a different culture than what New Orleans brings. I would say some things are good, some things are bad. Actually, was it a culture shock moving to Atlanta for you? Yeah,
it was definitely a culture shock, man. It's different out in Atlanta, and I mean, the feel is different. The vibe of the city, just having like a giant city where, you know, in Atlanta, we always talking about Atlanta, but we moved we did start in Atlanta to Decatur, Stone Mountain. We ended up in Snellville, and I still reference it in Atlanta, but as you know, it's not the same thing.
Yeah, it's Snellville.
But like, that's kind of just going to show, like, when we think about Atlanta, we think about the whole metro area, you know. In New Orleans, we kind of thinking a little bit about, you know, the suburbs, but like, we're mostly talking about just a much smaller area. And I think that feel like, you know, you're not, even with people having family in Atlanta, you know, we were a good 50 minutes away from from one family member, about the same distance away from another family member. And, you know, in New Orleans, it's not like that. New Orleans feels like a smaller city. You know, it feels like a city where you run into people, your family, people you know. And in Atlanta, like, you know, you gotta agree upon a time and you know, and
then factor in traffic,
yourself out there. Yeah,
the whole nine.
So it was different, man. It was different. There was a lot of things that I think felt kind of like felt a little bit bigger, like more opportunity and things like that. I mean, just felt like a whole lot more people. I don't know about statistically or anything, but there's a lot of like types of people that I wasn't really meeting here in New Orleans. I remember we got to Atlanta, full of Jamaicans out there. You know, we're tasting the cuisine, you know, eating curry chicken or jerk chicken and all of this stuff. And a lot of other folks. One of my best friends was Bosnian, you know, just like getting a little bit into that. Like he was born in the war in Bosnia and came to Atlanta. So that was kind of cool for me. I've always been somebody who was interested in like different cultures and things like that. That was kind of cool. But it was definitely a culture shock, man.
Yeah, for sure. I can only imagine. I feel like Atlanta is, of course, there's a lot of people that migrate to Atlanta because it's one of those southern big cities. It's very different than New Orleans, though it is still southern. But I would say that there are plenty of good things. One of the things I love about Atlanta is that you see Black money, right? So like Black prosperity. Yeah. You see a lot of money moving around, you know, the nicer houses that are inhabited by us, like the people that look like us, which I think does well for representation. Some of the setbacks, though, I will say as I get older in life, one of the things I realize about Atlanta is that it comes off very superficial as well. Sometimes it seems like it's just about the show, not really much under it. Yeah, it's more of a status.
It does
place.
Feel like that a little bit, yeah.
And in as I get a little bit older and I'm raising children, I'm like, man, I think New Orleans is a little bit more of the substance rather than what it shows. And I think I'd prefer that right now in life. You know, who knows if I end up back in Atlanta or our family does, but definitely two different places, good and bad, right? So with that, you went to South Gwinnett High School, right? A very reputable school, I would say, mainly based off of some of the sports that they have. We've had some NBA stars come out of that program out there. You play some basketball in high school, and then you transition to a very even more reputable school when you went to college. Can you kind of talk to me about like that journey between you leaving Snellville or that Gwinnett area to going to a very special place?
Yeah. I mean, I think I kind of said before, I've always been interested in like meeting different cultures. You know, I say cultures, but it's almost like difference. You know, I'm kind of like a lot of us have that little like explorer type, you know, fire inside of us, going see new places, see new people, things like that. And so I was pretty sure, like even before I started thinking about college, that I didn't want to do college in the same place where I already was, which kind of meant for me as much as I was missing New Orleans, I didn't want to go back to Louisiana, and I didn't really want to stay in Georgia. Like I would consider it, but it wouldn't have been my first choice, you know? So at that transition, I was, looking for basically anything that seemed like a fit. I was interested in biology, studying biology. I didn't really know what I was going to do with it, but that was like my bread and butter. And so basically just looking at any kind of opportunities that I could have to like go see a little bit more of the world, you know?
Yeah.
And that's what luckily ended up happening when I got, when I was accepted and got the money to go to WashU in St. Louis. Yeah.
So man, before you got accepted to WashU, I didn't know much about it, but then I remember when you got accepted, I was like, holy crap, like this thing rivals,
school,
it was, I think, the number one school across the country, right?
Nah, it wasn't. It was like top 15 maybe at its peak.
Top 15, which is still very top tier.
Yeah,
it rivals like your Ivy League schools, and the education is extremely good at WashU, especially at that time. I'm not sure where it stands now, but I would like to think that it's grown since then as well. What was your experience at WashU like? Because from like a brother's point of view, I saw Jamal when he first showed up to Atlanta. I saw him playing sports in high school as, I was off in the Marine Corps and stuff like that, and come back and I see you growing, not only in stature, because when I first met you, you were probably like 5'4". Now you're many inches taller than me now. But I think I saw some of the most internal and external growth of Jamal when you broke into college, right? And you started to get your college education. I remember I was on a work trip that was near your university, and I just dropped in, and we got to hang out a little bit, and I was just like, hopefully I didn't give it away, but I was looking at you and all like, dang man, this guy is really doing this thing, like very immersed in the college experience. How would you say that WashU kind of molded you as a person?
That's something that I also think I have digested more and more as I get older. We're always in constant evolution, so it's like figuring out how certain things molded us. And maybe the same thing can mold us like in different ways, even. Like it led to, for example, just thinking about kind of like the classic example of like, I had strict parents. Somebody with strict parents can kind of grow up to be a strict person themselves, or they can grow up to kind of like rebel against that and be like, I don't want nothing to be strict. And so just thinking a little bit about that. But anyway, I'm extremely grateful for the education that I got at WashU, and probably even more than that, just the experiences that I got with people out there, people from places that I wasn't really meeting before, people from all over the country and outside the country, a lot of folks from truly all over the world. And that was like exactly what I wanted. I wanted to just jump into something new and see a little bit more of what the world was about.
Any honorable mentions as far as people that really stuck out to you that you still maybe have relationships with today, or?
Yeah. I would say so. A guy of mine who I just talked to earlier today, who just had a baby, Sam, just a good friend of mine, a white dude from out in California, very different reality for me growing up, but we just connected. We collected a lot over music. He put me on to like skateboarding, know, something that not a lot of folks that I knew, at least in New Orleans, were doing, or even out in Atlanta. I mean, I'm sure they have folks doing it, but like, I feel like folks like Sam, it was cool to like connect with people who didn't look like me, who didn't really come from the same types of places where I was, and see where we did have things in line, where we did connect and where we did meet, just as a way of really kind of realizing that there's a lot of possibility in the world, a lot of possibility for connection, for ways to do life, like what life looks like, where you can get happiness from. It doesn't have to be going to WashU. I pretty much only listened to whatever my parents were gonna play, which is probably like, R&B, some soul, Motown type stuff, Stevie Wonder, the kind of the classic like black artists from the 70s, 80s, 90s, that type of stuff.
Yeah.
I listened to that. I listened to you know, hip hop and rap, you know. So that was one of the cool things about going to Atlanta, you know, was the wave that was kind of coming through there at that
it was like
point.
snap music at the time,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, D4L,
Oh
you
my
know, Gucci
gosh.
Mane was coming up and stuff.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that was cool. But like, you know, I listened to rap and hip hop and stuff. You know, if somebody would have said something about rock music, you know, when I was in high school, they'd been like, nah, just period. I don't listen to that type of music. And I'm still not, I wouldn't call myself like a rock lover or anything like that. But from the beginning of college to the end of college, I mean, aside from having listened to and tried out, at least given a shot to a lot of this music that I kind of just would have written off before, maybe one of the biggest differences was that like I would no longer like pride myself on saying, oh, I only listen to this type of music.
Yeah.
Now it was like, oh, let me try that out. Let me see, you know, let me try. I don't, you know, that there's no like pride in saying, oh, I don't like that, or I don't need to listen to that. It's like, I can just try it out. You know, I can see what's up. And if I don't like it, that's cool. You know, I don't need to like everything, but there's a lot of things that I didn't grow up with, or I didn't get from my family that might be for me, you know?
Yeah, man, it makes me think. So here on the show, we go with this phrase. We say, choose curiosity over certainty. And I feel like being in spaces like what you talk about as far as being in WashU, it encourages that type of behavior where, you know, instead of being so certain that hip hop is the only thing that I like, being around black people is the only thing that I know, it forces you to get exposed to other different type of lifestyles. And I think it actually really comes into what this show is all about, right? The Salad Bowl podcast, where everybody can be their own different ingredient, but if we all land in the same bowl, we can still be looking at a very healthy exposure to how we go throughout life. So it's good to know that our universities out there, shout out WashU, are creating environments like that, man. So you did your time at WashU, you graduated WashU, which I don't think is an easy feat. And then you went on to brave a little bit of the world, man. How did you how was the transition from college to other things?
I was ready. I was ready to leave. Not necessarily ready to leave, but I was ready to be done with school, you know. As much as I have always loved learning, I don't love like taking tests, you know, and you know, and learning things that I didn't want to learn. You know, for example, I love biology. I don't really like chemistry, you know, and that was a big part of my experience. So I was ready, and I think, you know, maybe that's one of the credits to WashU or just the university experience is like, you know, getting kids to have a good time and getting them knowledge, but also getting them like ready to do that next thing. And so I think from a lot of the stuff that I was learning from like some internship experiences, and, you know, extra shout out to the folks in the biology department and the sciences in general at WashU, who even like outside of my actual mentors just gave me some good advice, good tips, helped me with connections and things like that. So I was definitely ready to go out into the world. You start making a little bit of money, you know.
Yeah.
I didn't have a lot of money when I was at WashU, so I was ready, man. Yeah, and got into a few different things right out the bat.
Nice.
Yeah.
And I think those are some of the things that we're going to get into later in the show. But what I like to do, one, thank you for sharing kind of like your upbringing, man. I always think that is a very important part of sitting with my guests and exploring like where you come from, because I think so many times in our narrative in current day is that we see people for what they are right in front of us, and we see that as a constant, like how I met that person. That must be how they have been their entire life. I don't think that's in any case the truth. There's reasons why we end up how we are. And thanks for sharing with us kind of what made you into you, man. With that being said, I want to move on to our next segment. Our next segment is called the Toss-Up. Now, that's going to help us get to know you a little bit more.
Okay.
It's by way of this little game we play here on the show. It's called the Toss-Up. And really all we do is I have some questions that I wrote down. I got some from different people that wanted to know some things about you. And we threw them into the salad bowl in front of us. All you have to do is just reach in, hand me one of the questions. I'll read it for you. And then we'll explore it. They're usually like either or questions. And then we'll explore your answer.
Bet.
All right, here we go. The first question of the toss-up for Jamal. All right, pick one to share about. Your biggest achievement or your biggest life lesson that you've learned?
Biggest achievement or biggest life lesson? That's a good question. It's a tough question. Biggest achievement or biggest life lesson? Man, I mean, maybe I was thinking I was gonna go with achievement, but nah, I think I'm gonna go with the lesson, and I'll probably have a different answer on any day you ask me this, because that's a tough question. But I think one of the biggest life lessons. There's two that really come to mind right now. Um, one that I feel like I've been getting reminded of a lot this year. And another one that just feels a little, maybe even that I've just been thinking of and reflecting on for years and years and years, especially as I get a little bit older. And so the second one, the one I reflected on for many years, is probably just, and none of this is new. I think it's gonna, everybody has their own versions of these lessons going on in their head, but like that life is what you make it, which is, like I said, a very simple idea, and something that I think, most of us would probably agree with to some degree, but like just realizing that that we're in a driver's seat ultimately, you know what I mean? That we are obviously like not just a product of ourselves. We have influences, whether that's our parents or guardians, our siblings, our friends, teachers, people who have kind of been in charge maybe of certain things that we've been doing at some point, employers and things like that, right? There's obviously a lot of people who have a say in like in our path, in what we can or maybe sometimes can't accomplish. Some people can feel like barriers and all of these things, but ultimately that like we're just in the driver's seat, that regardless of what X, Y, or Z person does or doesn't do for us, it's still like the ball is always hit back in our court to where we can say, all right, how am I going to react to that? And like I say, it's a very simple like lesson, but it just feels important to me. Maybe in a way because of because of my upbringing, being the youngest, because of always having folks looking out for me. We get to a point where it's like, okay, what do I want, and how am I going to make that happen? What am I willing to do? What am I not willing to do? And just coming to terms with that, I think is, it can be tough, but it's also obviously really empowering. I think, just realizing like, all right, if I want something, I can work on a way to make it happen. I don't know if I'm necessarily going to get it, but it's on me. You know 100%. What I mean? And obviously other people are going to play a role in that, but like, it's ultimately, what I do about it.
I think there's a lot of accountability behind that as well. Yeah. Like, not only is it a call to action, like, I got to make the most out of this thing, but it's also realizing that I am the number one factor in ensuring that what I want actually happens. Like you said, there will be other factors at play. Like with anything, there'll be friction, there'll be, things that you have to overcome, obstacles, but if I want to go get this thing, it's literally going to start with me having to do the work. Yeah. So, man, I like that one. What's the second one?
The other one that I've been thinking about, that I've been, I feel like I'm still kind of in this little re-lesson. It's not a lesson I would say I'm learning for the first time, but it's been something that for whatever reason, I feel like I've been, when it feels like almost like signs and things are popping up in your life.
Yes.
It just feels like this year I've been really being reminded of the lesson, or just the reality that that other people are not me. What I mean by that is like to say that, in a way I don't have to always be able to understand someone else, to give them their agency, you know what I mean? To like understand that they're doing what they're going to be doing for them. And I mean, I think there's a lot of different ways you can maybe take this, but I'm someone who, kind of always gravitated towards the sciences and things like that. Was very much like kind of a STEM kid, logical thinking, rational thinking, all these things. And at the same time, at least I personally consider myself a pretty empathetic person. I come from a very empathetic family. And so I think a lot of times that would result in me trying to understand what other people's motives were behind X, Y, or Z, And I think more and more, this year I'm just being reminded of the fact that like at the end of the day, I won't be able to understand people all the time. I can obviously still make that effort, not saying like I don't need to make an effort to understand people or that I can't understand people. Sometimes I will be able to, but sometimes it's like people are they're just being them, you know what I mean? And they're not always like an extension of me. They're not always doing something for the same reasons I would or anything. And I think that's just it's been something that's like, I think giving me a little bit of peace, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just like let people do them, support them in who they are, and not just because I can understand them. Like just kind of detaching, like maybe acceptance from understanding, from having to understand all the time.
like that.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, there was somebody who said something to me the other day that I really liked, that helped me kind of understand where you're at as far as understanding that lesson. They said to me, not everybody was raised at your dinner table. And it made me like, it took me back to the times of being at my dinner table, the lessons that I learned, I guess, figuratively and literally at the dinner table when my dad's telling us about his day or, something happened in school, and how both my parents, because I had the luxury, and so did you, have the luxury of both of our parents in our household, how they taught us, but realizing that that's not everybody's experience. Hence why they land in life a little bit differently than me. Their belief systems are different, And again, it doesn't take away from who they are as a person, but I think it helps me understand, like, there's a formula behind this thing. Of course you wouldn't be me. So just, an interesting take, I would say, to say the least. All right, so that was the first question of the toss-up, man. What's the next question? You got 5 in total. We got 4 more left.
All right.
Okay. What step of your educational journey molded you the most as a person? And I guess what I mean by that is, are we talking elementary school, middle school, high school, college, or even outside, the things that you've learned in life outside of college? Which one would you put the most emphasis on as far as molding you as a person?
I think I would put the most emphasis on my elementary education.
Really?
Which is kind of including the education I got at home, which is both like from a perspective of parents just being in a position of educators, but also both of my parents literally being educators, being teachers. I feel like that's molded me the most. I mean, like, I may have learned the most like kind of factual knowledge, things that I'm putting into practice in the later aspects, like college and after. But I think the things that I learned in elementary, the reason I say that I think that molded me the most is because they feel maybe the most fundamental, the things that I feel like I learned at that age were more like, almost like lessons for the heart, than just for the mind. And I think about, for example, when I think about my trajectory of like where I'm at, the jobs that I've had and things like that, something I referenced before, always being interested in, in other cultures, getting to know people from other places in the world. I think a lot of that comes from having like the education from my mom being a Spanish teacher, so her like teaching a different language ever since I was born, and till just a couple of years ago. I think those things, like the things I learned at that age, kind of seeded the deeper things that I look for and that I associate with myself more than just for example, like, I learned how to speak Portuguese in college, and that's something that's obviously, really changed my path recently. But I think I would have never chose to learn Portuguese if it hadn't been for the ways that my elementary school teachers were dealing with difference, and the way that my mom was teaching me about just like what it means to even be in coexistence with people who are speaking another language, let alone like learning that language, but like what does it mean that we have a world full of people who are like speaking different languages?
Yes.
You know, can we connect with them? You know, how could we connect with them? Just things like that. So I would say.
So did you learn? I mean, because from my understanding, did you take a Portuguese class? Like, was it a WashU class, or but you kind of took that up on your own, right? Like, it was kind of based off of like, hey, I just have this interest in another language, and so coming from a person who only speaks one language, and I've traveled to Spanish-speaking countries, Middle Eastern countries, I've always felt like I've have one less limb when I can't speak or communicate to people from another race or different region of the world. The fact that I don't want to call it a disability, but that lack of communication that I was able to have, like that sparked something in you to be able to say, like, again, it goes back to your initial point of what you just talked about, like life was what you make it. And if you had this interest into, you know, interacting with different types of people, you armed yourself with the ability and equipped yourself with being able to understand different type of people. So big ups to you on that, man. Like, it's crazy how the world fits in to certain perspectives like that, man, because I don't think a lot of people take the action in order to achieve what they're actually looking for. You did that. So you learned Portuguese, and this is not just like one or two words, like the basic level. Like, you are fluent in Portuguese now.
Yeah, today I definitely am. Yeah.
How long did it take you to
get
fully,
fluency?
Yeah.
I had like a kind of a ugly level of fluency when I left WashU, actually, which was 2 years of Portuguese. I started my first Portuguese teacher. I actually heard an old recording on one of my mom's old recording devices. My Spanish teacher from high school was my first like mentor in Portuguese. So I had like an independent study class, they called it in high school, where I could kind of guide myself along with some like loose mentorship from someone who she helped me a lot. She gave me a lot of resources and things, kind of guided me. When I was in high school, Miss Poole, she was like my first Portuguese teacher in a way, and then I took 2 years in college. But those 2 years, like in college, they were 5 credit courses, like an hour every day, you know. And so I was just kind of surrounded by the language, you know. And like I said, kind of an ugly way, like I didn't have a very good accent or anything like that. But because of the foundation I had in Spanish, maybe like 2 years to get like a basic level of fluency in Portuguese. But then obviously it got a lot better when I moved
to Brazil.
When I moved to Brazil.
Yeah, we'll definitely get on that here pretty soon. All right, we're going to move on to the next question of the toss-up, brother.
All right.
What's your next question? All right. I think this one's pretty easy, man.
Okay.
Actually, maybe not. I don't know. It's going to be a hard decision.
Let's see.
So, say, for example, you wake up in the morning, you don't have work for the day, you just have an open schedule. Which one are you choosing? Are you choosing to do a little drumming or capoeira? Capoeira.
If I could only choose one.
If you could only choose
if I got
one.
the whole day, you know, I think I could.
You have to do one for the majority of the day.
If I had to do one for the majority of the day, it might depend on I think it might depend on the day. That's hard to narrow down. If I had to, I might pick drumming.
Really?
Yeah, I might pick drumming.
I was anticipating your answer to be capoeira. But
Yeah.
But drumming, tell me why.
I think I might say drumming. It feels like more fundamental to me in a way. I mean, a big part of capoeira is even drumming is an aspect of capoeira. You know, the musical aspect. I think like in a way, I mean, I can't see capoeira existing without drumming, without the beat, without the music behind it. And so that's part of why I would pick drumming. Aside from it being in my life a lot longer, than capoeira, I would pick drumming. It's something that's like as amateur of a drummer as I am, I've been surrounded by rhythms, you know, my whole life. You know, we obviously went to a lot of drum and dance classes here in New Orleans, out in Atlanta, even in St. Louis, in Brazil. So, you know, the influence of my family, the community around me, it's like, it's in a deep place in my psyche, you know, drumming, just listening to it. And then, being a part of creating that rhythm
How did you end up, you know, immersing yourself into drumming? Because you say your family, and of course, your sisters did African dance, your mother did African dance, your dad, he drummed as well. But of course, there are a lot of people out there who their family do certain things and they either, like you said, rebel from it or that's not for me. How did you fall in love with drumming?
You know, it's kind of funny sometimes when I think back about it, because as much as I was surrounded by it, I wouldn't say I felt the same way that I do now until I was an adult. So when I was around 12 or 13, like shortly after Katrina and after moving to Atlanta, when I had a little bit more agency, when I could, maybe be at home by myself or just with my sisters or something like that, I didn't have to always tag along. A lot of times I wasn't choosing to go drum. It was like, my parents, having this thing that most people at school didn't really share that reality. I was getting a little bit more into basketball, competitive basketball, was kind of starting to think a little bit more. I've never been like big on the way I dress, but I was starting to think a little bit more about that, like not getting clowned at school or like, making sure that like I looked kind of, I could fit in or whatever. And I think at that time I started to lean a little bit away from drumming in the drum and dance community, because it kind of felt like something a little bit more for my parents. It felt like a little lame almost in a way. It's like, I don't really like want to be thinking about these things that nobody else is thinking about. I want to go play basketball or just watch some TV or something like that. And so I kind of started gravitating away from it. And then when I was back at WashU, or when I was at WashU, I don't know exactly. There's like a part of the story that I definitely don't always, I won't be able to explain all the way, but that I can remember since being a little kid. I had like little tics sometimes that I would do, like little ways that I would like click my hands or even just be saying like little little things like this, in ways that, sometimes my sisters are like, what are you doing or whatever, that we couldn't always figure out. I mean, still to this day, I don't really know where that comes. I mean, a lot of people have, maybe my sister could speak a little bit more on that. I won't try to go into diagnosing whatever that comes from or what it means or anything like that. But like at WashU, I remember kind of having a day where I was like, oh, dang, it seemed like they were maybe nervous tics or something like that. But I kind of remember thinking one day, like almost like having a flashback of like connecting with myself as a little kid. Cause I don't have those same, little tics or little, I don't know what I would even call them, little tendencies or whatever. But I remember having this like flashback. It was like, oh, there was always like a little rhythm playing in my head, where a lot of times I'm just kind of, doing out a little rhythm and not like any sophisticated rhythm or anything like that, but just some music like going on in my head. And I realized that and kind of realized I've always wanted to be drumming, just drumming on something. It doesn't have to be with people. It doesn't have to be anything like, formal. It doesn't even have to be a real rhythm, but just like drumming on something. I love doing it. And I think I started to realize from that point on, like the way that it connects to just my peace of mind in a way, the way that I process things. I've like heard some things since then about how music and, rhythms can help us like think through things sometimes. So it might have to do with that. I don't really know, but I did start to realize like, oh, I've actually always loved this thing. It wasn't just something I was doing for my parents. Like, it's something that I love doing, and that just feels like a part of me, drumming. And so I kind of started to reconnect with it at that point, and have still been connected with it. I don't always find the time to do it like I would like to, but I definitely acknowledge the importance to my soul, I guess.
Man. It's interesting. I'm sitting here thinking, and it makes me think of like, drumming for you doesn't seem like something you do. It's something inside of you, right? And that was probably implanted, or there's something just natural, like that rhythm is naturally inside of you that your parents maybe hinted at or maybe trained you on early, but something that's always going to come back around and be part of your life, man. I think that's really special, because being connected to something bigger than yourself is, I think a lot of people are looking for that thing. And it seems like you were introduced to it very early in life, man, which is actually really cool, man. So thank you for that answer, man. We got 2 more questions left in the toss up. The next question on the toss-up for Jamal Gaddis is, success, is it measured by money or meaning?
Success. I mean, okay, so I think the obvious answer is meaning. You know, the obvious answer is meaning, but
However, comma.
yeah, you know, the world we're in, like I you know, yeah, like short of a revolution, of a not just any revolution, but like a really almost hard to imagine revolution. Like money is, you know, it's important to the day to day that we live in, and so I would say probably honestly a little bit of both.
A little bit of both. Yeah,
probably both. You know, just being honest, and if not money, like you know, some way to have food and some shelter. You know, either whether that's money or some other means, but definitely I think the bigger answer in a way, or the more complex answer, or maybe the answer that like is not just a matter of checking off if you have it or not, you know, is that meaning, because you know, we all define that for ourselves. We've all probably had moments where we're like, oh, I have everything I need right here, but something's missing, whether that's a person or whether that's a, you know, you know, I have a Sankofa tattoo, you know, that's something that I know a lot of us, especially in New Orleans, are thinking about the meaning of Sankofa, of, you know, sometimes that feeling of like, oh, I have everything I need, but something's still missing, is something, you know, we forgot to do in the past, something we got to still kind of reach back and do, you know, whether that's a relationship with our family or friends, or whether that's just, you know, connecting with nature. I don't know what it is in that moment, but I think a lot of us have those moments where we realize like, it's, you know, there's more to me than just like eating and sleeping and, you know, and being physically okay. Like there's some meaning out here, I think, for probably the vast majority of us, you know, that we have to find and just like do the work of connecting with and finding for ourselves, you know. So yeah, I would say the biggest part of success is in the meaning. Yeah, it's in the meaning. And
I like that answer, man.
Yeah,
I like that answer. And the longer I live, I feel like you would have asked me, if you would have asked 18-year-old Kevin that question, I would have definitely said money. The older that I get, even with children having to provide for a family, I feel like that answer actually evolves to more meaning. Even probably hence why I'm doing a podcast like this, because you know, I'm not getting paid to do this by any means. I don't even think I'm good enough to get paid for this. But I will say that it means the world to me, right? Just to be able to document conversations, and it's just that small meaning that serves as currency for my life right now. So yeah, man, I definitely see where you're coming from on that one. All right, brother, you got one last question on the toss up, man.
No, this one.
Yeah.
This one.
All right, let's see here. Last question. It's a good question.
Okay.
Which one are you taking? New Orleans or Brazilian cuisine?
I'm gonna take New Orleans cuisine. I'm gonna take New Orleans cuisine.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
What is it about New Orleans cuisine that puts it on the top tier?
It's probably a bit personal, because you can get a lot of different cuisine, you know, out in Brazil as well, and some delicious stuff. But I think it's like the fact that you get New Orleans has, I think, some of the world's best food, and like some of the world's best food, not just in restaurants, you know, but at people's houses and down the street at the gas station, wherever it's at. And I think the thing that puts it over the edge for me is just that, like, those flavors can bring me back, you know, to my own childhood and to my own family and things like that. So it wins for me, but not because I would like literally put them on the scale and say like New Orleans actually has better cuisine. It's more tied to it. I'm more tied to it.
Is there any particular New Orleans cuisine, anything that mom used to make that really brings you or makes you feel connected, even when you're outside of New Orleans, that really connects you to the city?
Yeah, I mean, it's a classic answer, but gumbo, you know, it's something that like, it's just one of my favorite foods in the world, you know, and it's also something we don't have every day, you know, so when it comes around and when it's good, it's special.
Yeah,
gumbo.
man.
Classic answer.
Like that answer, bro. I like that answer. Gumbo is definitely by far. Actually, you know what? I'm gonna tweak mine a little bit.
What would
Mine
you
would
say?
be Mariah's gumbo.
Oh, yeah.
It's
Yeah.
something about when Mariah cooks it or my wife cooks gumbo. It's like it's a certain flavor that I'm like, oh, that's
Yeah.
my wife's gumbo.
And
you know?
she's actually, I mean, I didn't really see her doing it. It was almost like one day she just knew how to make gumbo. Maybe she made some bad ones along the way. I don't know, but
Bruh.
she's gotten to a point where
Bro, I would like to tell you she's made some bad ones, but they're always.
good,
What
huh?
I think it is with gumbo, it seems like it's almost like hereditary, right? Because I've had your mom's
does.
gumbo as well, and I was like, oh, I see where it's like there's a lineage of gumbo
Definitely.
handed down
There
to
definitely
Mariah.
is.
And I actually wanted to say the first time Mariah made gumbo, we were probably in Japan or something like that, and she reached back to mom just to be like, hey, you know, what's your recipe? And there was a lot of like ifs, a little dash to this, and you know, all that kind of stuff. But still, it turned out, you know, at the end of the day, their
Delicious,
gumbo
huh?
comes out and it tastes like nothing but love. So
Yeah.
yeah, man, that's what's up, brother. Well, this is
Yeah,
what we're gonna do,
gumbo.
man. We're gonna go ahead and end that segment, man. I think
right.
that we learned a little bit more about you in the toss up segment as far as your choices on the questions that you chose. We're gonna go ahead and move on to the next segment, man. Our next segment is mixed ingredients. Now, mixed ingredients is where we kind of get to explore some of your passions, some of the things that you love to do, kind of the things that, kind of the ways that you express yourself, right?
Okay.
And I know that you said earlier that you're really into biology. One, I want to explore how this love for biology came about, what this love looks like as far as like, biology is a pretty broad subject, right? Or a pretty broad topic. Just kind of want to dive into that, man. How did you enter this love for biology?
Kind of honestly, as far as I can as far back as I can remember, I was like interested in animals, you know, just thinking animals are cool. I think there are a lot of us as kids, you know, kind of start to learn about the world a little bit through animals. I don't know. There's like a universal appeal to like elephants and zebras and lions and stuff like that when you're a little kid, you know, and that stuff just stuck. I remember getting books like from my grandma, little pop out books, learning about, you know, starting to get into like more and more animals, not just lions and stuff, but like narwhals. I remember learning about, you know, having this book when I was like 5, learning about a narwhal and just thinking like, this is crazy that this animal exists. You know, this whale that has like a horn on it.
Yes, coming straight out of his head, right?
Yeah, you know,
Wild.
what's that about? You know, that type of thing. And so just always kind of fascinated by what animals could do. It kind of seemed like, I loved Pokemon when I was a little kid, and animals are like, you know, they're the closest we can get to Pokemon, you know, and I don't have any of them, but you know, just knowing they exist is like, it's cool, you know, knowing that, you know, you have like electric eels, you know, can actually use electricity. That's something we can't, you know, I can't even really fathom other than like Pikachu or what was his name? What was the guy's name?
Oh man, I'm trying to remember back to my Pokemon days.
Static. You remember the guy? I think it was a Disney. I think it was Static Shock.
Static
Was it?
Shock,
Static
yeah,
Shock.
the
Static
superhero.
Shock.
Yeah, okay,
exactly.
yeah.
You know, short of that type of stuff is like, you know, animals are actually doing it. And so I just always, still to this day, found the ways that animals find to like, you know, harness the same ingredients and use their mechanisms, their biology to do different things with that, whether that's just being fast or flying or using electricity or whatever it is. I just find it fascinating, you know, like.
If you think back, what was one of the most fast, if you had to pick an animal that really like intrigued you when you were younger, what would you say, I guess, your favorite animal was coming up?
I remember being maybe I was like 10 or something, and it was some show on the Animal Planet. I used to love Animal Planet. It feels a little different nowadays when I turn animal. Like I haven't seen it in some years, but I think they used to have a lot more shows where it was just like going out and just talking about animals. And I was like some reality shows and stuff.
It really is.
Yeah, you know, but like I remember learning about this animal. It was this show. I can almost remember that. I can kind of remember what it looks like. I forget the name, but they would choose like the most something, like, you know, the most venomous or the
Yes.
most, you know,
Like the top 10 or top 5 of the
exactly
most
strongest
yes.
or something like that.
Most
the
deadly.
loudest, you
Yes.
know. And I remember one of these, the top was like, it was like the most indestructible or like the most versatile. I forget exactly what they called it, but it was this microscopic little animal. I think sometimes they call it I want to say I might be forgetting, but I think it was called like a water bear or a tardigrade. This little like microscopic animal that is found. I don't remember exactly where it's found. I think it's pretty common just in random, like kind of on the grass and stuff. It's not something you would see because it's microscopic, but I remember that was like my favorite animal for a minute because I don't know how they figured this. I mean, I can imagine they probably subjected these little microscopic animals to some craziness, but you know, they like figured out that it was like, it could like survive being out in space and like the vacuum of space for I don't know how long. It could survive being in like frozen, you know, sub-zero temperatures for some crazy amount of time, some extremely hot temperatures, like radiation. It could be exposed to all these things and like it would go into some kind of little hibernation and then be okay after that. And I just thought that was tight, you know, this little microscopic animal.
Almost indestructible.
Yeah, it was like a little indestructible little.
That's pretty dope. That's pretty dope.
Thing. Yeah.
So I know that your love for animals was very apparent, hence why you dove into biology, but they're, you know, based off of our conversations, of course, we're brothers. So like we talk more often than just sitting on a podcast. That love ended up growing in a different direction away from animals, but still within biology. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah. So in college, it was like by the time I graduated college, what I realized, I think biology was kind of when I was in high school was kind of like a catch-all term, you know, for I think what we define biology usually is the study of living things. And it wasn't like any living thing or any system I was interested in. It was mostly animals at first. And kind of like once I was getting to college, really over time, like in high school, I started to, I guess, have enough patience maybe to be looking a little bit more at plants, like plant functions, you know, studying about what goes on inside of plants from photosynthesis to like, I don't know, to a lot of other random things, you know, how plants grow, the differences between them and the ways that basically the same thing, like the same interest in animals, but like applied to plants. How are they using the same, you know, they're here in the same world, access to water, sunlight, you know, nutrients and stuff like that, but they're taking that in and then doing some other things with it. And little by little, I think plants ended up, starting to fascinate me even more. I think I don't want to say like they're doing more than animals, but it's almost like there's just a much more diverse world, I think, of plants, you know, and when you think about where they're living and what they're doing it's just fascinating to me.
I think that plants don't necessarily get much of the credit because we don't see them in action per se, because you know, we're not doing a special on National Geographics or the Animal Planet where we're showing you what a plant is doing, but we all benefit off of what these plants are doing based off of what it's providing for us as humans, whatever it's providing for nutrients as far as like the things that it grows. The fact that, you know, you could chop it down and it grows again, like it's literally, it's when you stop and you just, I guess, breathe in the fresh air that it provides, right? You see how fascinating something as simple as a plant can be. Are there any particular plants that are like rank at your top, let's say top 2 or top 3, where you're like, these plants, they do something very special, or they provide something that a lot of people don't know? Like, what are some of your honorable mentions when it comes to the plant world?
Let me think. I think there's some cool trees that I didn't really know about so much when I was here in the States, that getting after college and getting into some biology jobs and then getting to Brazil, that I've been a lot more in contact with, that I think are just really cool, are a lot of trees in the like the fig family. That have this ability to put down roots from the top. You know, we usually think about roots as, you know, starting in it, like, you know, they come out the seed and they're always in the ground. We think about roots in the ground. And there's a lot of cool plants. So they have roots that are in the ground, and then you know, this is the trunk. They can put down roots from their branches and things like that. That when they make contact with the ground, you know, you think about this like string, this root coming down. When that makes contact with the ground, you know, if the conditions are right, it can solidify. That root can get thicker and thicker, and in a matter of, you know, months or years, if you walking through the forest and you see this, you know, what started out as a root coming down from the top, you would think that's a whole tree in and of itself. You know, you would think that's like a stem or an actual trunk. And so a lot of these trees can, over time, just be massive, like occupy huge areas of the forest. They can almost be like moving, you know, because of this action, to where they can start here, grow over that way, put some more roots down, and then keep going that way. You know, it's that to me is just,
that is fascinating,
you know?
one, but extraordinary as
Right.
well. Like just because yeah, again, I think this is where I do it. I'll speak for myself, like where I discount the abilities of plants, because I didn't see plants as a moving thing. But in that capacity of what you just explained, this thing can continue to move.
yeah. Basically.
And I would say it's the same life form of what originated as one, but now existing over. Man, that's pretty fascinating.
Yeah, it's crazy.
I never even stopped to think about
It's
that.
crazy. Yeah.
It actually makes me think, and now you got my brain kind of racing, but like it kind of makes me think of like the evolution of time, of life, of what we do as humans as far as like families, right? So like, of course, my daughters, my son are extensions of me. They would go on and say, for example, Kaya, Corey, or KJ move to Europe, start their own family there, or in Asia, or like that's still extensions of our family that are still moving throughout this world.
Yeah.
And still, I guess that's why it all falls under biology, because it is the study of living things. And plants, though not as active as humans are, I guess to some extent,
Maybe not as fast with it. Or
exactly,
something. Yeah,
as
you know?
visible. Man, that's still very intriguing.
Yeah, it's cool.
Something I never even considered.
And
man.
I think just to the point you made about connecting it to family, I think one of the reasons I love it is not just because, you know, I love studying these things, is because there always does seem to be some kind of connection back to me. You know, whether that's like a spiritual connection, it's not always literal, but it's like, it kind of feels like I can understand a little some aspect of myself, or you know, my conception of the world through learning about these other things. You know,
That's super dope,
yeah,
man.
definitely.
That's super dope, man.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for sharing about at least even just the wave tops of your interest in biology, where it's taking you, the things that you've learned. And I feel like even where I say it's taking you, you know, of course I know this about you, but like you've worked in rainforests across this world. What is the feeling of being in a rainforest? I would say that it's probably a little bit different than New Orleans or Atlanta. What's the feeling that you get when you're out there in the forest?
And I think there's some different feelings, a lot of frustration.
Really?
Depending on, like a lot of, you know, a lot of thorns in your hand, a lot of tripping, a lot of not being able to go through this way. You know, I think one of the feelings, maybe the base of that feeling is like, it's true, is being in something bigger than yourself. You know, it's made up of a lot of individual plants and other animals and things like that. But when you're in the forest, you really feel like you're in something. You
Yes.
know, you feel like you can get lost. You can, you know, you can feel afraid of like, you know, animals, whatever it might be. And so I think at the base, like for better or for worse, probably the base feeling is just being in something, like knowing that you're inside of and a part of something that truly is greater than you, and it's complex, you know? And I think when you can, you know, find your way, whether that's finding your route, you know, knowing, like getting to know the path that you're going through, or finding the fruit tree that you're looking for, or whatever it might be, that's a cool feeling, feeling like you can navigate this huge complexity is, it's finding some reason or finding some logic or some patterns in this that you can connect with is really cool. Like I said, whether that's finding the tree you were looking for or just knowing a little shortcut or finding a little, the little creek that's just a nice little place to rest. It's cool when you're like, okay, I can, it's not just overwhelming and complex. It's like something that I can find my way in. And I think that's tight.
Yeah, man. I mean, and just hearing you talk about it, it seems like navigating a rainforest may be very parallel to navigating life. Like there are some things that you're going to run into, and I guess the full circle thing, right? Like, but there's some things that you may run into obstacles you are not prepared for, things that seems like you can't get over. But the more you deal with this life thing, you're like, oh, I know that I maybe need to take a break around here, or I have this coming up, or I've seen this route before, I've seen this tree before. The best way to get around it is it. I know what to eat. I know what not to eat. It seems very similar to navigating life. And you said something when you talked about like being in something that seems bigger than yourself, man. I've felt that a couple of times in nature in my life. One, when me and the family, we went to Hawaii, and for some reason the ocean out there just seemed a lot different. Like it was just. One, you're on an island, and we had been to beaches before, but like the waves were so strong, and it's like we went up to the North Shore, very popular part of the island, and man, I remember being swept out into the ocean. I was like, I have no control of this thing. It was so scary for me, and I can swim, I know how to, but it was something about surviving something that was just I felt so small,
tiny,
oh my goodness, but it's very humbling. I feel like experiences like that are very humbling, man. Yeah. So, man, thank you for sharing that, man. What we'll do is we'll close that chapter and we'll move into our next segment. Our next segment is called Dressing It Up.
All right.
And this is where I want to dive into what you're into right now, man. I think you have a very special role in what you're doing in your adulthood as far as your job. Can you kind of explain what you do on a daily basis and where you do it from?
Yeah. So I work now at a company based in São Paulo, Brazil. That is an educational consulting company. Basically, it's a college counseling company that we, in the States, that's what we might call it. So we're working with students, Brazilian students, who are looking to get into colleges, do their undergrad experiences outside of Brazil. So the most popular places are US, UK, but there's a lot of other countries who are kind of up and coming on the radar for a lot of folks in Brazil to just get a quality education and some experience outside of Brazil to then take that back or do whatever they want to do, how they want to create their careers from there. So on the day-to-day, I work in this company specifically working with kids on their essays. So doing a lot of essay revisions and talking about essays with these kids. I was also for a brief period after this was after going to the rainforest for the first time in Panama, coming back, and I worked in admissions at WashU for a couple of years. And so that was kind of that combined with already speaking Portuguese kind of opened the door to go in and do this college counseling job in Brazil. And so saying that to say I have experience in kind of other aspects of the, getting ready for college experience and applying to college experience outside of essays. But today that's kind of where I enjoy working most and where I focus my work is working with these kids on their essays.
Man, that I think in terms of giving back, right? Like you've been through the system as far as making it to college. You went to a very prominent college, and for you to take not only your interest and your academic level to give back to people who haven't been through that pipeline, but you're also doing that outside of this country as well, based off the skills that you learned while you were in college and things that sparked your interest. What is the biggest joy that you have in the day-to-day job that you do?
I think I'm gonna say two. I think because one is a lot less day to day. One comes around, when kids are getting results, it's obviously very infectious, you know, to know somebody or be involved in their process of applying to college, and them to get into, you know, their dream school or just any school that they're happy to go to, you know, they're going to get a good education from. So that time where students I've worked with are getting accepted into colleges is it's just cool. It's a joy for sure.
Yeah.
But more of the day-to-day joy that I feel is just working with these young people on the types of topics that compose their essays, you know? So especially in the States, you know, in other countries, their essays involved usually around like, you know, what you want to study and why you want to study at that university. Kind of straightforward, you know, but well, honestly, not even so much the topic of what you want to study. For a lot of these kids, like, for a lot of them, they put a lot of thought into it. For a lot of them, they haven't really put a lot of thought into it until now, you know? So they know, okay, this could kind of be a good path. Maybe my dad did this, my mom did it, or I know somebody, or it seems cool. You know, I've put a little bit of thought into it, but now that somebody's asking me and they're going to be really interested in the answer that I say, actually, why do I actually want to do this? You know, or what do I want to do with it after college? And so that can be a really cool moment for these kids, and especially, you know, especially the essay processes in a lot of schools in the United States. They're asking questions that are a lot more personal than that. You know, they're asking like, what have been the experiences that most shaped you in your life, or what was a time where you failed, and what did you learn from that? You know, have you been a leader, and what was that like? They're asking questions that some of these young folk have thought about and you know, hit that level of reflection on their own experiences and things like that. But some of them, at no fault to them or no critique, just haven't really had a time where they really had to think about these types of things,
Yes.
you know, or answer these questions for themselves. And so that is definitely the day-to-day joy that I receive the most, is just being able to one, like, you know, be privy to like get access into a small part of these kids' sincere personal lives. You know, that's something I don't take lightly. A lot of these kids are, you know, some of them are really dealing with some serious stuff at this juncture in their life. And, you know, these intimate and personal questions can bring up some really, sometimes some stuff that's not even all the way worked through, you know? So it's definitely a position that I don't take lightly, but then being able to, you know, stimulate their mind a little bit, or get them to think about something that they haven't thought before, or help them to express something that, that is really cool, because a lot of times that's not just for the college application process. A lot of times these young folks are kind of thinking about their own experiences and what they want from their life in a way that they just haven't really had to before. And so that can be pretty powerful for them. And so it's cool to be involved in that process.
That is pretty dope. If you had to give some advice, say, for example, you have a 16-year-old, 17-year-old. I mean, my oldest daughter, Kaya, she's 16 right now. We're about to engage in the college admissions process. If you just had to give one underlining successful rule of thumb that you've seen in admissions, and what would be what would be a rule of thumb that you would actually say that you would give anybody who's about to enter the process of searching for a university?
Like to like kind of a tip to help them in that process. Yes. I think I mean, one tip that the thing that most comes to mind is to like manage stress. I think it can be a stressful process. You know, anytime we're gonna, you know, whether we're applying to schools or applying for a job or something like that, it's something that obviously comes with stress, that a certain amount that you can't avoid. But I think, you know, maybe this is a different conversation, but I think more and more, especially inside the U.S., applying to schools is stressful for young folks, you know, and you know, maybe part of this is just being in this kind of age of connectedness, and where, you always know the statistics, you know what everybody else is doing and what they're, where people got in, you know where you fit in, so to speak, and where you maybe don't fit in or shouldn't get in or things like that. And there can be a lot of stress associated with the process that I don't think it's ever really beneficial.
Yeah.
Obviously a little bit of stress just to motivate you to go out there and put your best foot forward is good, but yeah, like finding ways to just manage that stress. And I think maybe maybe a tip that would come out of this is like realizing that there are so many places that you can get a really good education. You know what I mean? Like obviously a lot of places aren't associated with the name and the prestige. But like a lot of folks who are on the other side of college will tell you, it's not all about that. You know what I mean? It's about having a formative experience, having a place. Obviously you don't want to just apply anywhere, but I think it's good for especially the young folks and the people involved with them, their families and things in that process, to realize that like, you don't have to go to a big name or a prestigious school to get something that's going to prepare you mentally, socially, and even financially for the next steps of your life. It's really not all about that. So don't let the stress get all don't let it eat you.
And at the end of the day, I think it comes back around to your early lesson that you talked about. Is like, even if you don't get into that school, the world is still what you make it. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
You will still be able to live life in a great way, even if you don't get your number one pick. That it will be all okay. Of course, that's probably more easier said than done in the moment, especially from the perspective of our young people who are entering this search for what they think the next life looks like. But ultimately, you live a little bit more life, you know that it's still going to end up being all right.
It's gonna be
and
all
that
right.
you can still do plenty of great things not going to your number one
If you
college.
don't count yourself out, like nobody else is,
All right, man. Well, I think that circles us back around to our last segment of the day. And our last segment of the day we call the final bite. Now, the final bite is really a segment for my guest. It's really for you to have the final bite of this conversation and giving us, the viewers, myself, something that we can look at as far as a universal message that may be relevant right now or may be relevant in 50, 100 years from now, but something that you feel that's on your heart or your mind that you want to share with the people that would be timeless. So I'll hand that over to you, brother.
Something that's timeless. Let me think before I start. Before I
Take your
start
time.
answering, my mind is going a little bit to back to plants, as funny as that might seem. I think maybe a timeless message that kind of relates to plants. Like one of the big things I found myself thinking about, and a lot of us are thinking about, obviously, the more we all can start to see some of the consequences of our relationships or lack of relationships with plants and ecosystems on a whole. I think kind of maybe the lesson there is that that we're part of something. We're part of something bigger, and I don't mean it to necessarily have this spiritual connotation. It does have that spiritual connotation for me, but I think regardless of where somebody feels spiritually or not, just from a physical standpoint, we're a part of something bigger. More and more of us are realizing that we, for example, we need plants. We wouldn't, as far as we can tell right now, as far as a lot of us can agree upon, we wouldn't be able to breathe without these plants. And so that extends not just to plants or whatever it is, fungi or animals or whatever it is, but just understanding that and maybe this kind of ties in a little bit to the lesson I've been thinking about how other people they're other people. They're not we're connected, but we're different. And kind of maybe as just a reminder that that we can not like forget about ourselves a little bit, but like we can, by pouring into some of the things around us, the people around us, the other life around us, we really can be kind of pouring into ourselves, you know, just remembering that we're not isolated, you know, as much as I can spend a whole day maybe in my room, especially with like a phone or something like that. That's not what it's about. You know what I mean? That's not really what it's about. And so I think maybe to kind of like try to put it in a, put a conclusion on this thought that I'm thinking, it's that, yeah, we're not alone, you know, out here, whether it's other people or other things that we can learn from, that we can turn to for help, that we can remember what our impact is on those things, you know. Yeah, it's not all about us. And I think a lot of times that not just from a perspective of like, don't be selfish, but I think a lot of times that can be a real help to us when we're feeling down, you know, like sometimes just taking your mind off of yourself and putting it onto somebody else or something else can really remind you that it's like, oh yeah, it's not, you know, it's not only me. I don't know. I don't know if I articulated it very well.
I think you did, man. And I'm sitting here, you know, feeling the weight of your words, because I feel like that's the reason why I think I enjoy doing this podcast thing so much. Am I a pro? Probably not. But like, this gives me an opportunity to take the spotlight off of Kevin and put it on whoever I'm talking to, right? Like and it actually brings me joy to know, like, man, I'm just sitting here kind of immersed in somebody else's either success story or something to that. And you're right. It does remind you, like, the world is so much bigger than what we give it credit for. One of my good friends, he was actually on this show, I think around episode 2 or 3. His name is Billy. He said something that I thought was very profound. Everything Billy says is very profound, but he said life is not a spectator sport. So like, for us just to sit back and to look at this world like, oh, you know, this is just for us. I think we're missing the bigger picture, to your point and to your final bite. Yeah, like, we got to immerse ourselves into this thing called life, take some risks, take some challenges, but also, you know, we should be pouring into other people. So man, thank you for that final bite. That's going to resonate with me. And I know if it resonates with me, it's going to resonate with somebody out there, man, somebody who's watching, somebody who probably needed to hear that today while they're watching. So thank you for that, man. So this is what we'll do, man. I do want to, before we conclude, I just want to thank you for your time, man. Of course, we've known each other. Jamal, I think I've known you for more than half of your life, man. Which is wild to say at this point in time. Time keeps on flying. But I met you when you were in eighth grade, 7th grade.
It was 7th grade, yeah.
7th grade.
I mean, we had the Katrina. We can just mark it with Katrina.
Basically. Oh yeah,
so
over 20 years ago, man. That's wild. It doesn't even seem like, I mean, time moves by so fast, man. I will tell you, man, that you've taught me a lot about life, even in your earlier days. Dog, I remember. Little story here, but I remember I was home from the military on leave, you know, of course, coming to see Mariah or whatever. And you and me wanted to go play basketball one day. And then we went to go play with Jason and Marcus. And we were playing at some hood ass park, Indicator.
Yep.
And I specifically remember that because I felt like that was one of the first times that I recognized that you were different when it came to your character. I remember myself coming back, of course, picking you up, let's go play some ball, and getting out there with my friends and acting a complete fool. Like, and that's where I was at in life at that time. I was very young. I was cursing a lot. I was trying to be one of the guys. We played against some dudes. I don't think we ended up fighting anybody, but like, I was doing all the things.
Yeah, I
was acting very, very young. I'll put it like that. And I remember after dropping you back off to your house, afterwards, I felt like, damn, man, like, never had a little brother, but is that the example that I wanted to be for Jamal? Like, it like tore me up. Even to this day, obviously, if I'm bringing it up, I was like thinking like, damn, man, I could have done a little bit better in setting the example. And that was my first time thinking like, man, I've never had to consider being the older sibling. You know, I've always had the freedom to be the youngest, at least in my family. But your response to it, you never said like, hey, Kev, chill out or nothing like that. But like, I remember that being a very teachable moment for me in my life, just based off of your reaction. And you've always been very like even killed. So I think that's the part about life that I really do appreciate is like we learn stuff from each other no matter where we're at in life. And I appreciate you taking the time to come and sit down with me, man. I appreciate you as my brother, as a friend, man.
Thank you,
and as a lifetime learner, man, I'm always learning from you. So thanks for coming on the show. To the viewers out there, just want to say thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Salad Bowl Podcast. Make sure that you continue to normalize authenticity. Be who you are because there's only one you. And then at the end of the day, consider curiosity over certainty, because when we do that, we have room for conversations like the one me and Jamal just had. So until next time on the Salad Bowl Podcast, we look forward to seeing you and we appreciate you watching. Thank you.
Thank you, Kev. Thank you, brother. I appreciate it, man.